Hey there, today's episode is going to be a pretty short one. We're going to be doing a little challenge episode here. So we can see we have a plot of land right here, and I'm going to be building a Vekoma launch coaster in this area. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so future me here. Obviously I'm a liar because this is a 34-minute long video, so whatever. It's a small challenge. We'll call it that. It's a short challenge. I knocked this out in probably 6 hours after editing, so anyways, about the ride here. This is my first stab at a Vekoma new gen coaster using the 1110 trains and the new track. This is a ride type that Vekoma has on their website called a Vekoma Ghost Rider, and it features this top hat thing that I'm completely butchering at the moment, but don't worry, I fix it. It looks nice later. But I want to say there's one of these or something similar to these in existence, maybe a couple. There's not a lot of these in America, so I'm not super privy to them myself, but that's just me. Let me know in the comments below. But this was a really challenging ride to build, and not only because I was stuck to the confines of the area that I gave, but it's just a challenging coaster type. The Heartline rolls that you'll see throughout are decently challenging to make look like the ones in real life. I don't think I quite did them justice, but they ride smooth, and that's really a lot of what I was going for in this short challenge series. I got this idea from another YouTuber. I'm really sorry, I cannot remember who it was. I watched this video like 8 months ago maybe on Planet Coaster 2. And it was kind of like you see these things pop up all the time where it's like 100 by 100 meter square or whatever pop up. And my main inspiration actually came from me watching a Coaster Force documentary on Intamin, talking about different ride constraints, and also listening to Dave Cobb talk about a lot of times making rides is a lot more fun when there are restraints on your design. So I kind of figured, that was from the Coaster 101 podcast, forgive me. So I really just kind of figured, why not do that in game? I've toyed with the idea of becoming a roller coaster designer. I don't think I'm going to, based on my rides. I have a long way to go, and I'm not really the math type, so we'll just keep that to YouTube for now. But I figured, what way to test some theories and stuff, and just make this more entertaining by putting real life constraints on it. So that's what we end up doing here. The layout changed quite a bit. There's a lot of smoothing that I think I did like 2 hours of smoothing. It was ridiculous after I built the initial layout, and you'll see a ton of different iterations here. But now I'm going to go back to the live section for the next update. Alright, so after a little bit of challenge here, I finally got the layout done. It's definitely a little more compact than I thought it would end up being, but it actually is pretty cool. It has a lot of really cool interplay going throughout here, and it twists throughout the entire layout just through each other. So that's pretty cool. I'm really happy with it. Mostly happy with it. It's not perfect, but this is a mini-series, so I'm learning from this experience. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and do some light terraforming, and we're going to change this part of the layout here. I know I just said it's done, but you'll see why here in a second. So let's go ahead and jump into the next section. The fun thing about doing these audio recordings is that I can laugh at myself. I think I say alright so to begin every section. So, with that being said, here you can see me working on the queue line, and I realized halfway through doing this queue line that I have these taggy 3D stamps to achieve the exact thing I'm trying to do. If you remember from Oakbane, one of the wooden coaster video, or I should say Behemoth, I did all that queue smoothing by hand, and it's a complete nightmare. But that was before Taggy 3D released these queue stamps, so they're awesome for making real-life cattle pens. I still wish we could make them a little thinner and do a little more customization to them, but it is what it is. You choose your battles, I guess, when you develop a video game, but hopefully they work on the queues a little bit, because it really frustrates the heck out of me. But anyways, I just want to say that was my least favorite part of the build. This part right here you're seeing on the screen was probably my least favorite part of my build. But the queue line ended up being like one of my favorite parts, including the station. The station has a lot of cool elements from like Millennium Force and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that right now because we're on the queue line here. We do change the texture to give it more of this like concrete pad feel. It's, the generic look is exactly what I was going for. And then we added in this wonderful little pond. So we're coming up on the next little update here after I finish painting the terrain here. So Filling time. Yeah. Am I bad at YouTube? I might be. I don't know. I'm having fun. That's all that matters. I grossly underestimated how much time this is going to take, and now I'm just yammering. I'm going to leave this in because it's kind of funny and kind of stupid. All right, here we go. Next update. Yeah. All right, I've got most of the terraforming pretty much all the way done. All the painting done. We're going to add some fountains and stuff in there in the little pond, but that'll come later. Next is the part I am kind of dreading, and that is custom supports. So I've actually never done custom supports in Planet Coaster 2. In fact, I don't even know if I've done them in Planet Coaster 1 now I'm thinking about it. I used to do it all the time in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, but couldn't tell you now, but we're going to give it an attempt. I'm probably going to do just like most of the big elements, like this part right here, the first element here, then we got this overbank turn and this half loop. I'm probably going to do all those, and then like all the basic stuff I'll probably just leave because there's no reason to custom support all this in my opinion. So let's go ahead and dive in. Here's the time lapse. All right, we're back. Here we are. Goofy me back here. I have way more time in this section. This custom support section is pretty long, so I have a lot of room to ramble, which I'm sorry if that's not your thing, but I'm having a blast right now. So custom supporting, as I mentioned in the previous segment, is something I've ever done in Planet Coaster 2. So this was actually a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, and a little irritating. I think the biggest part is just like not having the correct connection pieces and kind of just having to wing it. You see here at first here in a moment that I use 3D blocks for it, and then I discovered a piece that was more rectangular that has like an arch at the top that I used for the rest. There's the 3D block you see right now. Yeah, the piece with like the curved arch on it fits a lot better, and the texture looks a little better, so you see that throughout. This really was nostalgic for me, truthfully. I used to do this all the time in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 with custom scenery in that game, and so this really like satisfied an itch that I didn't really realize I had, just because it's been so long. I can't believe I custom supported like wooden coasters, and I'm sure maybe one day I'll look back at me playing this game and looking back at these videos and be like, I can't believe I put 6 hours into this small project, or I can't believe I put like 20 hours in this project, or whatever. But, you know, I really do enjoy making this content. Watching the videos is like a really cool review of what I did, and I kind of, you know, when you're playing in-game, just like you're doing with any kind of project management type stuff in real life, you know, if you're actively doing it, you remember the things you do, you take notes, but when you actually watch a video on your project, you have like a exact replication of like, oh, I can do this way better than last time. So I feel like my videos are getting more entertaining and better throughout time, and just as I'm getting much better at playing Planet Coaster 2. Like, I think this project is, you know, more detailed and cleaner than anything I've done in Planet Coaster 1 and Planet Coaster 2. It's taking me less time in general to make projects, but it's also, you know, it's taking me... What am I trying to say here? My screen froze. You're not seeing that because I'm editing this, but like, there's a part of the time lapse I need to cut out. But anyways, what I was saying is, you know, you start filling in your time with, you know, more proficiency, and that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say more proficiency and that kind of stuff. Yeah, let me go fix that real quick. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Magic of editing. This is way looser than any video I've ever made, which is it's tickling my fancy. Tickling my fancy. Oh my gosh, tickling my fancy. Just being goofy, and who cares? It's a YouTube video that like 400 people are probably gonna watch. So if maybe not even that much, who knows? That's the glorious thing about YouTube, is YouTube does what it wants. Back to Planet Coaster though, my biggest gripe with custom supporting, and this might just me being new to it and not finding the right pieces, but the footers that I have, physically the 3D models match what this Vekoma coaster has, but the recolorable sections don't, and that really irritates me. It's probably some form of like OCD or something. Who knows, man? I mean, I build roller coasters on a video game for fun. Who knows? Man, I don't know what's gotten into me today. This is not like me. But anyways, yeah, custom supporting this loop was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Sometimes you think roller coaster elements need a lot more support But it turns out if you look at like real life models, they don't. A lot of sections don't have. It's not like superly over supported because the game just generates based on how long your track piece is. So if you do like the smallest amount, you're gonna get a support like every like 2 or 3 meters or whatever the shortest piece length you can do with that whatever coaster you're building. So sometimes that can be a little misleading if you're not like using a reference picture, but I used a reference picture of a Vekoma ride from China that was I think it was a Shockwave, Vekoma Shockwave. Yeah, it was a Vekoma Shockwave, which the Ghost Rider and the Shockwaves seem to be very similar. I could be wrong, but they seem to be very similar, just at least in concept. But I'm not an expert. I'm very new to Vekoma. In fact, I meant to talk about this earlier. I'll talk about this real quick. Riding Siren's Curse at Cedar Point was my first like new Vekoma 1110 coaster, like train type, and also this new track type that I don't know the name of. And it was incredibly smooth. I did not break down while I was there. It was beautiful, and it's honestly like one of my favorite, like definitely top 10 favorite rides. So that's a lot of why I decided to make this. But anyways, we're gonna jump back into a live section. So here's that. All right, there it is. There's the custom supports. There's a few more I probably would knock out if I had more time, but this is a micro project. I'm trying to knock this out really in a day and a half, so I'm not trying to make this absolutely perfect. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to landscaping with flowers and plants, all that kind of stuff, and also adding concrete walls to the underground sections. So let's go ahead and move on to that time lapse. I was considering leaving all of these time lapses like just empty and, you know, just playing music, and that probably would have been like the wise choice, the better choice. However, I'm having entirely too much fun today talking into this microphone, and this is rare. I don't get this very often. But let's talk about the build. This little concrete area is like directly stolen from like every Vekoma coaster ever, but especially Siren's Curse. Right after the first drop, you have kind of like this half loop element. It doesn't invert, but then it goes underneath the queue line. And what a better place to put this than right at the front entrance, I thought, when I was building this. So originally I had a little bunny hill here, and it had too many G-forces on the rider, so I decided to change it and actually just made the loop larger. So one more thing that is really weird, and I feel like this is probably my graphics card, but if you look at this fog, I'm playing with the color here a little bit. It looks blue, right? I'm not crazy. Someone tell me I'm not crazy. It looks blue. And I think it's probably because of my graphics card. I'm sure I really should, instead of just complaining about it in every video, probably just upgrade. But if anyone wants to buy a PS5, hit me up. I'm going to sell my PS5 and get a new graphics card. But yeah, the particles can really... I found this out with Oakenbane. You think I know the name of that ride by now. Particles really mess with my computer, so everything else seems okay, but particles really tend to mess with my computer entirely. So, but it is what it is. What are you gonna do except buy a new computer and spend money that I don't have? We're not gonna do that. No. But if you want to help me out, you can hit that subscribe button. I'm like halfway to the number of subscribers that I need for like big monetization goals, but also like halfway through to getting like a penny for video. If everybody just watches my videos twice and leaves them on in the background, man, I'll get monetized just like that. You don't care about that, but if I got a penny per video, at least in like, I don't know, 3,000 plus days, I'll be able to buy a new graphics card. So just look at it that way. You're helping the channel out. You're helping me out, an individual who plays a roller coaster game for fun in his free time. And yeah. Anyways, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about plants, apparently, because we're putting a lot of plants. And I probably should cut this from the video. However, I like including a lot of these processes in, because it really, when I watch them back personally, I kind of can see, what I did, and if I needed to reference something, I can. But also, there's something really soothing about placing rocks and plants. I don't know, man. Like I said, I play a roller coaster game for fun. Don't at me. But yeah, the plants in this end up being really simple. That was kind of my whole plan for this whole project, was to keep it simple. Because I feel like my biggest issue when I play this game is I tend to overcomplicate everything. I put way too many pieces down, put way too many rocks down, and it just kind of makes makes projects take way too long. So that's exactly why, going back to the constraint conversation, why I decided to put constraints on this. So you also see me cutting some corners throughout this video that I don't normally cut, mostly with the chain fence that I custom made in Bumblebee Beach. I need to make like modular pieces for the corners, because you can kind of see here is exactly what's happening is the corners are weird. So I need to make like those corner pieces and just save them as blueprints. But I didn't do that this time. I'm not sure why I didn't take the time to do that. But once again, just going for the challenge of making this like a micro series. I have mini series and I have a micro series, and I would consider this a micro series. I am so sorry if you came here just to watch some like time lapse with some music and stuff, because I completely ruined that idea. That was what I was originally planning on doing, but like I said, this is a lot more fun just rambling into a microphone, and I don't do this very often, I feel like. So as I do more videos, sure. So talking about what's on the screen now, though, this was one of the more interesting parts of the build, just from a decision standpoint, a design standpoint. As you see, like, we had the metal grates there, and there was nothing below it. And I started thinking, I was like, I don't want to put this chain fence up here. I don't really have the pieces, nor I want to make the time to make the pieces to make this like connect better. It's also not an even grid. So I decided to put the concrete barrier up after looking at pictures that I took of Siren's Curse. In the queue line of Siren's Curse at Cedar Point, there is a moment like this, and it's actually verbatim almost the same thing, where it's kind of a concrete extension. There's no like metal grating and stuff, though. It's like you walk on the concrete part, but I decided to kind of create that depth moment there, just to, give a little separation between the two spots there. So looks like I'm running out of time for this little section here. I'll catch you after the next live section. Alright, I think that's about all the landscaping I'm going to do, just to keep it simple. Don't want to do anything too crazy with this. I might add some more plants here and there as I start adding scenery, but now I'm going to go ahead and add the barrier fence around our perimeter, as well as start on our station, which will be very generic. So let's go ahead and jump into that time lapse, and I'll catch you for the conclusion at the end of the video, right before the POV. I'm not quite sure why I said the POV like I did, but I totally did, and I have no regrets. Speaking of no regrets, here is me building some fence. I don't regret these fence. They were cool, they were nice, and I don't use them enough in this game. They're very much generically used in theme parks, which that was my goal, is just keep this as generic as possible. So I'll definitely be using that a little more. And speaking of generic, I decided to go ahead and make wider paths around here. I wasn't going to put any effort into buildings or other attractions, but decided a thicker border around it would look nice, and then add in this connection piece. I toyed, as you can see, with the idea of adding a flat ride, but gosh, flat rides are huge in Planet Coaster. There was nothing that I could really fit in that little small space that wouldn't just like overshadow, this coaster. So scale is probably the hardest thing in this game, and the flat rides don't really make it easy. That's a whole different conversation. I probably could have cut some of this fence stuff too, since I'm just like being an open book today, but we're going to leave it in. Start working on the queue line here a little more. I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to outline the coaster with the fence like you see in a lot of real life coasters, and I decided to mostly just keep the queue inside of a fence, mostly because I'm lazy, and these fence pieces that I made are bad. But speaking of fence pieces that aren't bad, these are from Minerals Steve's Wet and Wild. I saved them when I downloaded his project file, and I feel like I use and shout out Mineral stuff every time I play this game. So thanks, Mineral, for making really cool stuff. I really appreciate the creators in this game, and Mineral is absolutely one of my favorites. I'm very grateful that he puts out all his stuff to download, because why bother making things twice? Why should I try to replicate something that I like if somebody already put it on the workshop and you can just give them a shout out? That's just kind of my point of view. But if without people making content in this game, I probably would not play it as much, just because truthfully, people like Mineral make it way easier. And that makes me segue That's a terrible segue. It's not a real segue. I'm just going to talk about Speed Force now, because Speed Force is a ride that I feel like I make every time a new game comes out. Man, what a transition. That was fantastic. Speed Force is a ride that I make every time a new game comes out, but I skipped Planet Coaster. So I made it in Planet Coaster 2, and I made it like 3 times in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Or excuse me, 3? Alright, pause. Let's restart that. I used to make this in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and then made it in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 when the Intamin launch coaster was added. I think it was like added in Wild, maybe, the expansion pack. So I made it once in there, and then I made it as an SNS launch coaster. That was the second iteration of it, and now this is the third iteration of it. So it usually is blue, green, and black, but I decided to keep it simple and not change the colors, because I already kind of went with the blue and black, which is also Cronus, the first roller coaster I made in Planet Coaster. So I think black and blue just look awesome together, clearly, because I keep making rides with that color. Now we're starting to work on the transfer track, and I once again want to reiterate that I am not a coaster expert. I love roller coasters dearly. I am an enthusiast, but I am not an engineer or an expert on every single manufacturer design. With that being said, I referenced one of their rides from China, one of their launch coasters from China, and I also referenced a couple other of their rides that they make, and this was one of the more consistent designs that I saw. It had this really weird switch track that you can't make in game that kind of like meshes in between the normal track, and I'm guessing it kind of works like a railroad track, that you kind of switch it and it just moves within the normal track. I don't know. I wish I did. It is a new design, so I'm sure maybe somebody will make a video on it, but that kind of stuff's really hard for me to find, at least if it exists. I would love your references if you have, other than just going on like Google Images or like watching POVs and stuff. If you have other references for me to get like schematics and stuff, let me know in the comments. But I struggled with this for entirely too long, I think. I actually cut some of the footage out because it was just me like trying to make it perfect for what I was seeing in on those videos I was watching. But I kept this housing site really, really simple, and I'm actually quite proud of myself for not putting too much detail into it, because why bother? It's a little shed that houses a roller coaster that they work on, so it doesn't really need to be complicated. But the station is probably the most complex piece of scenery that we're actually starting now. And I love watching the process, seeing how my brain works, because you can see I changed the roof shape like 4 times. I had in my mind that I wanted to use these pieces. They're, quite frankly, my favorite like roofing pieces in the game. But I had that in my head, but the design I had no idea. And talking about the design, the shaping here was actually a complete accident. I started copying those steel supports over, and for some reason I had the roof selected and moved it down and moved it up by accident, and it just actually ended up working out really well. So I ran with the idea and then just started kind of playing with various geometrical support shapes here, and I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. It's a little wonky, it's definitely different, but I think that's where the charm comes in for this ride. If it was just like a flat generic like no limit station, I would personally be bored with that. So like having some details in here makes me at least happy. Going back to the path system, once again, I'm really constantly irritated by it, but I also love that it is as flexible as it is. I played Planet Coaster 1 recently-ish, and that was my number one takeaway, was the coaster builder is way better, and you can make rides way smoother than you could in Planet Coaster 1. It's still a challenge. It still takes a while, but the more you do it, obviously, the better you get at it. But two, like, you have way more customization with paths. So, like, as much as I complain about it, I am really grateful for it. And the features that they've put in this game to make it flow better. There's always going to be, like, proof of life things they can do, but that's going to be any product, any game, anything that you play. There's always going to be something. So I'm just really grateful the game is currently in its state. I feel like I've talked about that a lot in my past videos, but yeah, I just absolutely love this game, and the path system still irks me, but I'm glad it's more flexible than what we had in Planet Coaster 1. now we're pretty much just going through and doing final touches. We add, just all these plants and stuff, and we're going to add a photo booth from update 6. I keep calling them photo booths, but they're actually just like photo kiosks. Super simple, really effective. We're going to add that here in shortly as we add these plants, these lovely plants here, and fence. So I discovered these new bushes. I can't quite see what they're named with my small little screen, but whatever, you can kind of see them. Discovered them this build, and I think I'm going to use them a lot. I've used those like lime green ones quite a bit, and they've kind of been like a main workhorse bush for me, which sounds hilarious. It's a really weird vocabulary, but this one I actually think I like it better. It also doesn't have that really weird like masking issue, so there's that. I do love, going back to this camera function, I do love how they incorporated this into the game. It's a little finicky, and I do wish we could, I wish you could cycle through pressing, your X keyboard to cycle through the different motions, because you can only really you can only three-dimensionally rotate it, and then you can select the distance, but you can't actually advance move it like you see me here with the monitors. So that would be my one gripe, and maybe they add that, maybe they change it in the future. But the only thing else with this is I had to change the roof type. I wanted that to be the same, but I'm pretty happy with that. I love the scaling tool. Scaling tool is always going to be my favorite thing in this game. That's the other thing in Planet Coaster 1, going back to that conversation, that is missing. That if I was to tell you to buy Planet Coaster 1 or 2, 100% of the time it's going to be Planet Coaster 2, mostly because of those three things. So, also, I love the 3D art shapes in this game too. I know that's in Planet Coaster 1, but those are often lifesavers. You can really get away with a lot using those. So, yeah, I'm running out of things to talk about, so I know we're nearing the end of the video. I'm pretty tired of talking personally, but I can sit here. I can talk for another minute and a half for you guys before we go on to the POVs. I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about? What should we talk about? Should I just stop talking? No, I'm not going to do that. Oh, look, a cutscene. Look at that. We're cutting to something new. I really don't have to talk for all this, but I am choosing to. I'm sorry if I'm annoying. They added these in with Update 6 as well. When I say that these, I mean the canopies. We had the Greek ones with the Greek pack, or we'll call it the Greek pack. And they're like multi-texture and stuff, so I'm glad they added just the generic ones. And last step here, you can tell I'm getting tired. Last step here is just adding lighting. I love lighting. Every roller coaster should be lit at night, and that's what we're doing here. So mostly just white lights. We add some yellow to the queue, just underneath it. That's a good tip, by the way. Pull the light down underneath the ground, and you'll get a lot more of your area lit with these light types. All right, we're wrapping up. This has been fun. I've been very silly, and I appreciate you guys sticking around to listen. I'm really happy with these cinematics. I'm happy with this ride. Download code is in the description for the blueprint. Feel free to use that. I think I say it at the end of the video, but whatever. But I've really enjoyed talking to you guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you later. Psych, we're doing one more thing. No, I'm just kidding. See you guys later. And just like that, we are done. So now I got some cool cinematics and daytime and nighttime POVs. So we'll go ahead and jump on that. Hope you enjoy the ride. thanks for stopping by to watch this video. This was Speed Force, just a really quick challenge video. I enjoyed this a lot. This was like my first real stab at like a generic ride in this game. And I want to make a whole park kind of themed off this idea and this concept. If you enjoyed this challenge, let me know in the comment below. And if you have any other ideas for these challenges, I would love to hear from you. I definitely want to do more of these. I knocked this out probably in just building probably 3 to 4 hours, but with video editing and stuff about 6 hours. So really fun. It was really enjoyable. So yeah, let me know those ideas. I'd love to hear from you. Anyways, we'll be getting some new updates of some Bumblebee Bay here soon, and probably some more one-off projects as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The download code will be below if you do want to download this park file as well as the blueprint for this coaster. So feel free to use it in your project. Just make sure you give me a shout out. All right, that's enough talking. I hope you guys have a great day, night, or evening. Enjoy the ride, and I'll see you next time. Bye.